On team, what's happening? We are back with another episode of the podcast, and we're coming in live on this beautiful Anzac Day, which we will start off the video by talking about. So if you're coming into this one live, guys, you know the drill. You can jump into the comments and let us know that you are here. And we're going to be getting started on this video in 2 minutes. So team, welcome to another episode. I hope you're having a beautiful start to the morning and to the evening or afternoon for you guys. So we are kicking into an episode. This one's going to be all about motivation. All right. So for you guys that are feeling like, oh, you know what, I really need to get a bit of a kick in the butt, I think this episode will help, but not in the way that you're probably thinking. Okay, so we're going to go over some strategies here. We're going to think about some mindsets, and we're going to do that in around a minute's time. So if you're coming to this one live, guys, get down, let us know that you're here, and we're going to be starting in just a moment. Team, Anzac Day for the Aussies, 2024. Hopefully a few of you know what, I'm pretty happy if we don't get that many viewers into this one, because it's probably because you guys are watching live, one of the morning sessions, and like it's a really humbling experience, isn't it? So hopefully this is being watched on replay by a lot of you guys and you're out doing the thing. Hello Shawnee, how are you, legend? Who else we got? Jimmy Norval, Nicky Friend, hello Lapo. I hope you're well, mate. We're going to be starting in 30 seconds, team. So if you're coming into this one live, guys, let us know. Also, just letting you know that unfortunately Facebook is limiting some features these days. So I can only see comments if they're coming in on personal profile. But other than that, we are live in our groups, and we're going to get started on the count of, we ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back to the Better Body Academy podcast. This is the podcast that you come to when you are sick of the dumb diets and unsustainable workout programs. Now, I come to you this morning on a very somber moment, which is obviously thinking about the Anzac spirit. Now, I know a lot of you will be unable to attend the podcast live. I do hope that you're putting in some thought into what this day is all about, and it is an immense day, particularly if you're from Australia or New Zealand, remembering our army services. And of course, the wide spectrum of people who have given to our beautiful country. If you don't live in our country, then you may not understand the gravity of the meaning of this day to a lot of Australian and Kiwi people, and it's a big thing. So there's kind of like this double-edged sword to the day, isn't it? There's the very challenging memories, no doubt, for some people more than others if they had family that participated in war or are participating in military activities. And then there's the celebration of just how good we are as a country at bringing together and, remembering our troops. So I just wanted to make note of that. And to everyone that's in Better Body Academy that has at any point served or given to our country, I just want to say thank you very much. Okay, we're going to get into the podcast, guys. And this podcast is all about what happens when you struggle for motivation. And this podcast is coming off the back of a great conversation that I've had with our UK-based male clients, of which a few of the boys sort of raised up over the last couple of days. What do you do? It's this big question. What do you do when you're struggling for motivation? How do you get yourself to keep going regardless? And isn't that just the challenge of a fitness journey? Whether you're trying to lose weight, get in shape generally, trying to build muscle, everyone is very good at getting going. And that's because, you know what? At the start, it's a shiny object, right? It's something new. But over time, when that shiny object starts to wear off a bit, it becomes challenging to keep showing up. And I think that this podcast might help because I think motivation personally is misunderstood. And what I don't want to do in this podcast is just give you a bunch of cliches from like someone who's involved in the fitness space without fully acknowledging that, you know what, I experience the same wavering motivation as every other person in the world does. If you take a scroll through Instagram or TikTok, it's almost as if like these fitness dudes and girls, never have that. And part of the problem is people keep failing because they think that it's abnormal to have down days or down weeks or down months or even down years. So what I did was put together a collection of points as I was having the discussion with the UK boys yesterday. And I just want to talk through those points. And maybe if one of these points or two of these points stands out to you, then I think it's worth jotting it down and trying to implement this into your practice. Because the reality is not everything will work for everyone, and we're all different in our different ways. And so if there's something in here that's a nugget for you, go and implement. Okay, let's go from the top. One of the comments that we start to hear a lot of the time is that I'm just tired. Like I'm just really tired and I'm struggling to motivate myself when I'm tired. And I want to say straight away, tiredness is a real thing. When you think about the demands that we have on our modern life to be ambitious and make more money and get healthier and fitter and be a parent and, be everything to everyone, it's natural that you're going to feel tired at some times. And I think it's important to ask yourself from a compassionate perspective, are you tired and do you need a genuine break from activity of kind, mental activity and physical activity? Or are you tired in part because you're not in the best of shape and you're not active? And I say that from my perspective, I get most tired in one of two situations. When I sacrifice sleep, which sounds obvious, or when I'm not exercising enough. The point I want to make is that I think 50% of people are tired because they're fueling themselves really badly with crappy, cheap, processed food. And in addition to that, they're not moving enough. So we get lethargic when we're out of shape. I know this firsthand. My sleep is the worst when I'm not training in a gym. When I go away on holidays and I maybe go away from my structure and I don't have that real deep nervous system fatigue that comes with lifting weights, my sleep goes to shit. So the first thing I want to ask you is, are you tired through taking on a lot, or are you tired because of the physical and inactive state that you're in? Because there's a big difference. One's going to require some discipline, right? One's going to require you to go, okay, maybe I'm tired because I'm so out of shape and I'm carrying around an extra 20 kilos. That's a suitcase worth of body fat every single place I go. And I want you to pretend picking up a suitcase and carrying that around with you all day, you would be tired because you're physically carrying this extra weight. Or are you tired because you need to give yourself some compassion? For those of you that work shift work, it is the most debilitating problem I think that most people face in their journey, is that they are working revolving shifts that change each week, and it just makes it really hard to get some consistency. So think about that. Do you need to give yourself some compassion, or do you need to give yourself some discipline? And there's a big difference. Okay, number 2 is when you're thinking about working out, a lot of people say, I'm tired and I get to the end of the day and I just can't motivate myself. That's because you are legitimately tired, and as the day goes on, your willpower drops away. because you're tired. What happens for me after 9 o'clock? Nothing. Like anything that happens at the back end of the day, for me, the further I get into the day, the less productive the day actually is. I personally think that the single best move that a person can make, if it's possible, and I mean from a family and work position, if it's possible, is to wake up an hour or two earlier and put your training or your productive stuff at the start of the day and take it away from the unproductive hours at the end of the day. When you train in the morning, rather than trying to motivate yourself at the end of the day, when you train in the morning, it gives you motivation for the day rather than becoming a motivation drain at the end of the day. I mean, the reality is, if you go to work and all your mental bandwidth is exhausted at work, and then you come home and sit on the couch for half an hour, and then you think to yourself, now I've got to get to the gym, the whole time you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, I've got to get to the gym, and you're almost convincing yourself out of wanting to go. This is why I believe that if it's possible, the very best thing you can do is train in the morning. Not because you get better results, but because it means that you can come home from work and spend genuine family time relaxing or kind of declining mental activity rather than trying to keep yourself motivated to do things at the end of the day, which is really, really difficult. I see the people, particularly the men that can do this, that maybe aren't the primary caregivers anymore. The guys that are getting up at 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock in the morning to do their sessions, that might sound ridiculous, but remember, it's only 2 or 3 days a week that you need to do it. You could do 2 days a week of really early morning sessions and then maybe make one of your sessions on the weekend. But the great thing is you can come home from work, whether you knock off at 2 o'clock or 5 o'clock, and spend that entire time with your partner rather than trying to motivate yourself to get to the gym. Does this make sense? Okay, point number 3 is that I want you to understand, if you're on a fitness journey and you're feeling unmotivated and you're feeling like you're really struggling to get going, just remember that that's because you're trying to change your identity. Like, you're not yet a healthy, fit guy or girl. That's happening as you start to put more ticks in the box. But at the moment, that's not you yet. It's not as automatic as it will become. You're trying to build a new identity. You're trying to build a new identity that supports your habits, but it's not yet embodied and automatic yet. So in terms of motivation, it's going to take time. It's going to take failing, right? A good question to ask yourself when you're kind of struggling for motivation is, what would a healthy man or healthy woman do? Right? It's a pretty simple question. If you're struggling to motivate yourself to cook a healthy dinner, well, ask yourself, in this circumstance, what would a healthy man or healthy woman do? If you're struggling to get out and go for a walk, ask yourself, what would a healthy man or a healthy woman do? What you're doing is reminding yourself of the identity that you're trying to create, rather than trying to use all this willpower to force yourself to do something. And guess what? Sometimes you're just going to fail, and it's going to take time because it's not yet embodied. If you keep on this path, what will happen is you'll eventually reach a point where it just becomes automatic. You just do the thing. You get up early, or you have an easy breakfast that's high in protein, or you go for a run, or you go to the gym, and it happens automatically because it's now a product of your identity, but you're not there yet. Point 4, is that it's okay to do things but feel totally unmotivated to do them. I call it the training paradox. How many of us go to the gym and we don't feel like it, but then we get there and we do it and we feel great as a result? Like, that's nearly every session, right? And so I call it the training paradox because you don't feel like doing it, but have you ever regretted having a healthy meal? Have you ever regretted not training? So you know this positive outcome happens. So what we need to be able to do is condition ourselves to do things that we don't want to do. And fundamental to this, like regardless of how we feel motivation-wise, fundamental to this is that this understanding that motivation comes when you do things. It's not something that you should wait around for to start. I'll give you an example. Let's say that you just do not feel like going to the gym. You're unmotivated in that moment, right? So you sit there on the couch waiting to get motivated. You'll be waiting forever. And if that's a reflection of how you do life, you're going to be waiting forever because you're not motivated, right? But when you act and you do the thing and you focus on getting the ship moving, once you get the ship moving, things start to roll because you've created momentum. And at that point in time, you're no longer dependent on motivation because you're now in momentum. Even if it's really slow momentum, that's completely fine. Then you start to feel motivated as a consequence of being in momentum. So we've got this motivation thing the wrong way round. We're all sitting here waiting to get motivated to get started, when actually what we should be looking for is getting started so we feel motivated. Does that make sense? The difference here? Everyone's waiting for the motivation shower to rain down on them, but it never comes because we're always motivated to do the things that are, we're only motivated to do the things that are easy and that we like. And most of the time that's staying in our comfort zone. But if we can condition ourselves to act even if we don't feel like it, we start to feel motivated every day because we're getting things that we didn't get when we don't act. So motivation is the product. It's not the start point. And this is really important to understand. Next point. If you feel unmotivated, is it because you have no accountability and no community? If you are always relying on what we call internal motivation, in other words, motivating yourself, if you're always requiring yourself to motivate yourself to be able to do the thing, that's going to be really hard because at least 50% of the time, you're not going to be motivated, right? You're going to feel like crap. So what's going to happen is if you're constantly depending on internal motivation, there's going to be a lot of ups and downs. So why not rely a little bit more on the power of external motivation? Now, if you're in our academy, that's a good start, but leaning into the group and leaning into your coaches is so important. And a great example of this is Mandeep Gill, who sent me a message yesterday and he said, if it wasn't for the external accountability that I had and you guys, the coaches in the community, I would have quit a long time ago. And I know that feeling because for me, having external motivation around my business development is the only thing that keeps me on course. So do you have that, or are you being enabled by your circle? Listening to everyone say, yeah, I totally get it. No, you're tired. You should have a break. Bullshit, you should have a break. If you want to have a break and you're constantly having a break, that's hardly going to get you closer to the goals that you have. Let's keep going. I think that we've got this false expectation that we should always be motivated. And that's probably a product of scrolling through social media and seeing motivated people, right? The intention is we want that to inspire us, but we don't see the other side of them. And so what ends up happening is we see this like very kind of shiny situation. You're scrolling through and you're like, oh, wow, he's so motivated. He's so motivated. He's so motivated. Why am I not motivated? And what that's doing is setting up a false expectation around motivation that you should be motivated anymore. always. The reality is I am unmotivated at least an equal amount of time that I'm motivated. And so we are really at the beck and call of our own expectations. If we set up an expectation that we should be motivated all of the time, well, guess what? It's going to be a real struggle. You're going to have a horrible experience because you're not going to be motivated. Factually, you're not going to be motivated all the time. And so it's about setting up an expectation that, you know what, I'm just going to mess it up sometimes. I'm going to be a failure sometimes. The way I like to think about it is when my motivation is low, I just aim to show. When my motivation is low, I just aim to show. I'm not trying to do the perfect workout. I'm not trying to eat perfectly. I'm just trying to turn up and put a little bit of a tick in the box so that I can say, I'm not just a summer guy, I'm an all-weather guy. I turn up and do my best in any situation. And guess what? When your motivation is high, then you can double down. Then you can do a PB on the gym. Then you can get in and be master chef. It doesn't matter. When motivation is low, you just aim to show. When motivation is high, you double down. Is that a good mindset to think about, guys? I think so. Okay. Understand that imperfect, messy action is a confidence builder. If you could put a fly on my wall or the wall of people that you deem somewhat successful, I bet that what you see is very, very messy action, right? They're not waiting until things are perfect. They're not waiting for stars to align before they get started. What ends up happening is they go, you know what? If I just do this as good as I can in this moment, it's going to help me to build confidence for tomorrow. And then if you do that for 30, 60, 90 days, what's going to happen is you're going to have built up the identity of someone that does what they say they're going to do. So, how do you do that when you're not feeling very motivated? Well, my way is that I try to chunk it down. I'll give you an example. Quite frequently, I know I need to write a podcast. I don't feel like writing a podcast because it requires a lot of brain work. And so what do? I chunk it down. I know that I can trust myself to get it done if I just follow this process. I open up a Google document and put down some notes. The first note that I write is the title of the podcast. Then I just put some dot points. And before I know it, I'm writing quite fluently. Despite the fact that 2 minutes ago, I was totally unmotivated to do it. You might have the same experience when it comes to getting to the gym. If you think about the whole process of what you need to do to get to the gym, it's overwhelming. It's almost like looking up at Mount Everest and going, oh my God, this feels so hard. But if you can just focus on the next thing, what's the next thing I can do? And almost like trick yourself to just do the next thing. I'm going to get my shoes on here. Great. Right? I'm going to get my drink bottle and bag packed. Great. Don't think about the whole thing. Just think about getting your drink bottle and your bag packed. Okay, great. I need to get out of the car. Oh, I still don't feel like doing this. I don't feel like doing this. That's okay. Get in the car and drive to the gym. Oh, I'm at the gym. Fuck, I'm tired. I don't feel like doing this. That's okay. Just walk inside. And you keep pushing it back until you're on the squat rack doing squats. And now you've entered that exercise paradox where I didn't feel like being here, but because I'm doing this now, I'm starting to feel good. I'm starting to get over the other side of the hump. So chunk whatever it is down that you're trying to, don't look at the whole picture. Chunk it down and just think, what have I got to do next to get this momentum? All right, there's 2 final points that I want to raise to wrap up this podcast, because ultimately If you understand these 2 points, I really do think that motivation becomes less relevant in your life. Number one is that I want you to remember that the choices that you're making around your business or your fitness, whatever it is that you're trying to motivate yourself to change, these are your choices. You don't have to do this. You don't have to listen to this podcast. You don't have to get out of bed. You don't have to go to the gym. You don't have to eat healthy. There are consequences, but you don't have to do it. I think that a lot of people struggle because they feel like someone is pushing them to do it. Well, the reality is, like, I don't care what you do. Really don't care what you do. I care what I do, but I don't care what you do. I can't want it more than you. But if you decide that, you know what, I am doing this for me, it's my choice, I get the opportunity to do this, as opposed to I have to do this, that's a very different mindset to be looking at the somewhat monotonous tasks of meal prep, for example, or going shopping, or going to do a gym tour. Like, this is your choice. So you don't have to do it. And the final point that I want to raise to wrap the podcast out is, in as much as it is your choice, your decision, what do you stand to gain out of all of this? Whether it's putting the hours into your business, or whether it is putting the hours into parenting, or whether it's putting the hours into your fitness transformation. In as much as it's your choice, what do you stand to gain from this? Because if in your mind what you stand to gain is, I get to lose 5 pounds, is the juice worth the squeeze? I don't think so. If you investing in a coaching program, what you stand to gain from this is to lose 10 kilos, is the juice worth the squeeze? Perhaps not. Perhaps not. But if, listen to this point, if you losing 10 kilos enables you to be more active as a parent, enables you to feel better at your brother's wedding when you put your suit on, allows you to wear a bikini when you're at the pool, and as a consequence of that, that makes you feel more confident. And because you feel more confident, either in the bikini or playing with your kids or showing up as a better version of yourself, you start to like yourself more, and you look at the mirror and you're proud of who you've become. You're proud of the man or woman that you're carving out. And then because you're proud, you don't have this constant self-loathing anymore. Instead, you start to feel pride and accomplishment. And it doesn't matter what anyone else says about you. You get to love yourself. What is that worth? And so motivation takes on a whole nother level when you put some depth to what you're trying to achieve. If you stay superficial, on the surface level, I'm doing this to lose weight, I guarantee you that's going to be very boring. It's not going to last very long, and you'll probably give up soon enough. But if you're doing this because, you know what, like maybe something negative got you started, maybe you tried to put the suit on and you felt crappy, or you didn't want to take your shirt off at the beach, or you couldn't keep up with that might be enough to get you started. Then we scrape the surface and start to realize that, hey man, I'm starting to feel good. I'm starting to love myself again. I'm starting to feel my life energy coming back. That is invaluable. And I think the problem with a lot of people is that they get up in the morning and the first thing they think about is like, I need to do this to lose weight, when you don't need to do it. It's your choice. And it's not about weight loss. It's about you having self-integrity, loving yourself, feeling great, and living the best fucking life you can. They are at opposite ends of the spectrum. Completely opposite ends of the spectrum. Guys, I'm going to leave the podcast there. Maybe this is one to re-listen to, because I think there's a couple of nuggets in here for those of you that kind of ride that wave of up and down motivation every single day, when the reality is you're not going to be motivated all the time. But you don't want lack of motivation to be the thing that brings you unstuck. Guys, love you and leave you on this beautiful Anzac Day morning for Australians. I hope you guys have a beautiful day with your partners, your family, and I'll see you in the next episode.